What happens when Hollywood's greatest icon, celebrated for redefining masculinity on screen, is revealed to have lived a private life filled with secret affairs, forbidden romances, and shocking betrayals? From Richard Pryor to Marvin Gaye, Marlon Brando's hidden world wasn't just scandal. It was a revolution in secrecy, desire, and power. But how deep did it really go? Before his death in 2004, Marlon Brando's private life was thought to be one of Hollywood's best-kept secrets. Known as the actor who reinvented American cinema with raw emotional realism, Brando's public image was carefully crafted. He was the rebel, the lover, the unpredictable genius. Yet, as the years passed, revelations emerged that painted a vastly different picture of the man behind the legend. For decades, whispers circulated about Brando's unconventional relationships, but it wasn't until music producer Quincy Jones, a figure whose word carried enormous weight in entertainment, sat down for a no-holds-barred interview in 2018, that the world's perception of Brando shifted forever. Jones didn't just hint at rumors, he named names. And suddenly, Hollywood's biggest secret was no longer whispered gossip, but a full-blown cultural earthquake. The revelations began casually. Jones, at 85 years old and with nothing to lose, spoke with the bluntness of a man unconcerned with protecting reputations. He described Brando as endlessly charming, magnetic, and daring in ways few could imagine. Then came the bombshell. Marlon Brando, the heartthrob of A Streetcar Named Desire and The Godfather, had intimate relationships with men as well as women. Jones listed names that stunned the public, Richard Pryor, James Baldwin, and Marvin Gaye among them. This was not a tabloid rumor. This was Quincy Jones, the 28-time Grammy Award winner, the architect of Michael Jackson's Thriller, one of the most respected figures alive in entertainment. If he was saying it, people listened, and for the first time, the private life of Marlon Brando was being examined not as rumor, but as history. But how did Hollywood react when the mask finally slipped? Jones wasn't pulling these revelations from thin air. He had been close to Brando for decades, moving in the same Hollywood circles. The parties, the late-night gatherings, the intoxicating mix of fame, drugs, and freedom. Jones had seen it all. His words carried the weight of personal experience, and while some fans clung to disbelief, others remembered that Brando himself had hinted at his fluidity long before. Back in 1976, during a French interview that American media largely ignored, Brando had openly stated, "Like a large number of men, I too have had experiences, and I am not ashamed." At the time, the comment was dismissed as European eccentricity, a throwaway line that didn't fit with Brando's Hollywood persona. But after Jones's revelations, those words resurfaced with haunting clarity. What other truths had the world overlooked simply because they weren't ready to hear them? The story gained traction when TMZ went digging for verification. Their attention turned to Jennifer Lee Pryor, widow of legendary comedian Richard Pryor. If anyone could confirm the rumors, it was her. When asked directly about Quincy Jones's claims, Jennifer's response shocked the industry, not with denial, but with laughter and confirmation. "Hell yeah, he did," she said, almost casually, as if this were common knowledge within Pryor's circle. She explained that during the 1970s, fueled by Quaaludes and a culture of artistic experimentation, Pryor had been open about his bisexuality. He wasn't hiding. To those closest to him, his relationships with men, including Brando, were simply part of who he was. Her confirmation carried weight not only because of her closeness to Pryor, but because it dismantled the narrative of secrecy. If Pryor had lived authentically within his inner circle, then Brando's relationships weren't isolated scandals. They were part of a larger cultural moment in Hollywood where boundaries were tested, blurred, and broken. But did the drugs define the choices, or was there something deeper in these men seeking connection beyond societal norms? Jennifer revealed that Pryor had written extensively about his sexuality in his diaries, accounts that she intended to publish. She described his bisexuality as genuine, not the product of intoxication or fleeting experimentation. This distinction was crucial. It meant Brando and Pryor's relationship wasn't a reckless accident of Hollywood excess. It was a conscious expression of identity. And yet, even as Hollywood absorbed the shock of these confirmations, another story emerged that highlighted Brando's turbulent connections with women. Rita Moreno, the legendary actress and singer, had long spoken about her 8-year entanglement with Brando. What the public hadn't fully grasped was how Moreno's story fit seamlessly into the pattern Quincy Jones had described. Brando as a man addicted not to love, but to conquest. Their relationship, stretching from 1955 to 1962, was marked by betrayal and obsession. affection. Moreno believed in their bond, but Brando continuously shattered it, marrying 2 other women during their affair and fathering children with them. Yet he always returned to Moreno, maintaining her as a constant while leaving devastation in his wake. How could one man inspire such devotion while inflicting so much pain? Moreno's analysis of Brando's behavior was deeply psychological. She believed his compulsive betrayal stemmed from childhood trauma. His mother, an alcoholic who failed him repeatedly, left scars that never healed. Rather than facing those wounds, Brando acted them out, punishing women while simultaneously punishing himself through destructive relationships. To him, intimacy wasn't about love. It was about control, power, and filling the void left by a broken past. One betrayal became infamous. Moreno discovered another woman's underwear in Brando's home, leaving her shattered. Her revenge, however, was equally legendary. When Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis Presley's manager, invited her to meet Elvis, she agreed. Dating the king of rock and roll was Moreno's way of striking back at Brando, igniting one of Hollywood's most famous love triangles. This wasn't just gossip, it was proof of the tangled, dangerous games being played among the most famous people in the world. Among all of Quincy Jones's bombshells, none carried more shock than his claim about Marvin Gaye. Known for timeless hits like Let's Get It On and Sexual Healing, Gaye was the embodiment of heterosexual romance and black masculinity in music. The suggestion that he had been romantically involved with Brando struck fans like lightning. This wasn't simply about sex, it was about dismantling an icon. Marvin Gaye represented purity and passion, spirituality and desire. To imagine him entwined with Brando, a white Hollywood rebel, wasn't just a scandal, it was a challenge to the cultural constructs of race, gender, and sexuality. Could it be that the legends we thought we knew best were living double lives the world was never ready to confront? James Baldwin's name was also among those linked to Brando. Unlike Gaye or Pryor, Baldwin had been open about his sexuality throughout his career. The thought of Baldwin and Brando together wasn't as shocking, but it added another layer to the story. Brando wasn't just dabbling, he was connecting with some of the most brilliant and influential men of his era, crossing boundaries of race, artistry, and social class. What emerges from this pattern is not a man with a hidden secret life, but a man whose desires reflected the revolutionary spirit he brought to acting itself. Just as Brando tore down the old rules of Hollywood performance, he tore down the unspoken rules of identity and intimacy. But did the world truly celebrate his freedom, or simply ignore it until it became undeniable? Hollywood's reaction to Quincy Jones's interview was telling. Few rushed to deny the claims outright. Instead, most stayed silent, suggesting these stories were not news to insiders. Oprah Winfrey, careful in her response, avoided direct confrontation. She didn't confirm, but she also didn't dismiss Jones's words. The silence of Hollywood spoke louder than any denial. It was an acknowledgement of truth hidden in plain sight. Meanwhile, the public devoured the revelations. Social media exploded, with millions sharing and debating the interview within hours. Entertainment news networks scrambled to cover the fallout. Yet beneath the frenzy, one truth lingered. If Brando's hidden life could be unveiled so dramatically years after his death, what other secrets lay buried within Hollywood's golden era?